Good morning, everybody. A few years back, I sold an amplifier, power amplifier, via a local music shop, and I got the message to come in and pick up an envelope with £80 in it. And as I was just about to go off to Shetland, which is the music festival, the accordion and fiddle music festival there, there's usually a lot of drinking involved. I thought, great, that will come in very handy. I can buy lots of booze and have great fun, excuse the French, pissing it up against a wall. So I decided no, I wasn't going to do that. That wasn't a good idea. Obviously I did go to Shetland, but I drank in moderation, as a lot of people up there noted, which was good. No, I decided to invest my money very wisely. Okay, now having been a music teacher now for nearly 40 years, I've been a music teacher. I started very young, helping my dad with some of his pupils. And of course, over the time, there's been quite a few pupils who have developed to the extent whereby I'm able to take them to a gig with me, and they join in. They get experience of what it's like to go out gigging, which is invaluable. And some of them have gone on to become band leaders themselves. Certainly, most of the musicians that you come across are actually quite trustworthy and professional. For example, our supporter within the group who obviously had to remove himself from the jury. I've had several conversations with him, nothing at all to do with making a murderer, basically to do with other things, music and such like. But unfortunately, some musicians do go off the rails. Why? We'll get to that in a minute. One pupil of mine went very bad. He went as bad as it's possible to go. Now, I had heard, I should explain, this lad came to me for lessons between about the ages of 11 and 16. As I say, he used to come out with me with the band. Then he went his own way. And by the time I met him the next time, he was in his late 20s. Now, I had heard a lot of stories about it. And as I say, some mitigating factors. Musicians can be quite sensitive people. You've only got to look at, for example, a couple of years back, I saw that Robbie Williams, having just signed an 80 million record deal with Sony, a few months later he's being treated for depression. Why is that? Because some are quite insecure. They just feel the need to be loved, but they're not sure if their friends are genuine friends or whether they're just there because they've got plenty of money. That's certainly one of the things. You know, they want to be told that they're the greatest all the time, and they're not sure if if compliments towards them are genuine or not. As I say, with this particular lad, who's now, as I say, in his late 20s, one of his musical heroes, very, very good musician, you know, to be admired, but I certainly don't think this guy is the greatest role model. Very much into alcohol and drug abuse, and although his music is great, you know, it's as I say, not a very good role model at all. And I was aware of all of this. Anyway, one night he asked me to cover a gig for him down in Northumberland. He told me it was through an agent, and that eventually I would get paid about a fortnight later. However, I checked with the lady who had actually booked a band, because obviously she was expecting this other fella to turn up, and me and my drummer turned up, and I explained that, you know, I'd been sent this gig and I believed that it came through an agent. She said, no, I actually paid him 2 or 3 weeks ago in full. So I got back to him and said, you know, why are you messing me about like this? You know, I've heard about you messing other people about like this, but you know, I'm actually, you know, I'm sort of on your side, and I'm also one of the guys that taught you when you were much younger. You know, don't mess me about. You know, this isn't the way to carry on. As I say, it took about 6 months to get paid. At another gig, a couple of months later, our payment on the night, because he'd already taken a deposit, but he'd taken a large deposit, which meant that our payment was £100 short. And again, it took him another 8 months to actually pay up the £100 that he was due me. I was particularly annoyed that he asked me if I'd got any disco light in. I said yes, I've got these 5 Moonflower disco lights, really good disco lights. I've got them in a nice case, complete with a T-bar stand, and I only wanted £100 for it. I mean, it was ridiculously cheap. But again, it took him another 9 months to pay up. However, some of the other gigs that I did with covering for him, they went fine. Sometimes he even paid the money into my account a couple of days before I did the gig, particularly because my drummer was getting particularly fed up, and then made it quite clear that he wasn't prepared to do any more gigs unless there was money up front for the gig. As long as there was money in the account before he went to do the gig, then we would go and do it. Now the crunch came when he asked me to do a gig and told me that it was going to be cash on the night, and there were going to be, to use his expression, nay fuck-ups this time. As I say, my regular drummer didn't want anything to do with this. But anyway, I sorted out a couple of guys to go and do the gig with me, another drummer, and one of my piano pupils, well, just a former piano pupil. He was now at university, just a young lad. On the night that we went to do the gig, he sent me a playlist, and at the bottom he added a message which said, this was supposedly from the bride and groom, because they'd sent the playlist. There was this bit added up the bottom. By the way, we forgot to bring the cash, so we've transferred money to your account. Hope that's okay. So I got in touch with the guy and said, look, you know, you told me it's going to be cash on the night. You know, I'm really, really not happy about this at all. I think you're just messing us about. And sure enough, we went and did the gig because we weren't doing anything that night anyway. You know, it was in the diary, so to speak, from 2 weeks previously. So we went and did the gig, and I checked with the bride and said, did you add this bit at the bottom of your playlist? She said, absolutely not. We paid him 3 weeks ago. So again, I confronted him and and said, look, you know, you're messing me about again. To which he replied with, you know, when I said that the bride's told me that she paid you, you know, 3 weeks ago, he replied with, she never. And he was one of these that would try and deny it, bury his head in the sand. Anyway, I've kept sending him messages saying, look, you know, if it's a financial problem that you've got, you know, why not just pay so much per week or so much per month? You know, at least start making, you know, because you've taken money for this gig, we've gone and done the work. You know, I've got a lad here who's a university student. He could really do with the money. Just come on, just pay us something, and at least we can get going. Anyway, he just ignored me for 6 months. That's when I decided I would invest my £80 with a visit to Selkirk Sheriff Court, and I took out a small claim. Should explain, a pupil lawyer had prepared all the documents for me. Once I'd got my receipt, I took a selfie of myself outside Sheriff Court holding the receipt and a message to the other band leader: try ignoring this. Now my lawyer was actually completely happy with what I'd done, because I say we'd got the text message proving that he'd lied blatantly, and he really didn't have a leg to stand on. 99% of my friends were more than happy. They were absolutely delighted, and said, this guy needs to be sorted out. To a certain extent, I was slightly annoyed that it took me to actually do that, because some of the other gigging musicians had been left well short through his antics. But there were two that had reservations and said, well, I wouldn't have done that. Which brings us on to the 2 billboards in Manitowoc. I say yes, something like that needed to be done. It's respectful. It doesn't mention Stephen Avery at all. And truth for Teresa will ultimately, inevitably lead to justice for Steve and Brendan. And I can't help but think that Brendan's message to us was, people of the world, help me if you can. Some people are prepared to just sit around doing nothing other than discussing it. No, I congratulate whoever it was that put those billboards up. I think it's a very, very good move. Hopefully it will produce a lot of bickering, both in the Sheriff's Department and among the Manitowoc public. And as I say, I really like the fact that somebody has actually stood up to Herman and stood right in his face and told him, basically, we are not going to just sit around and do nothing. Hopefully this will be the first of other things that will materialise in the future. We wait and see. Anyway, thanks for your patience, and bye for now.